Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Today it's going to be about design systems and specifically the all new typography variables that was very recently launched by Figma. Now, before I go ahead and show you how to use it, let's talk about and understand things at a much deeper level and understand should you even use them, right? Because let me tell you, there was so much buzz on social media when I was, looking at tweets on Twitter and looking at all the announcements. There were two tweets that actually caught my eye, and that's the reason I'm pretty much sort of making this video. So I saw these two tweets where this first person was saying it's kind of misleading about this whole feature. Textiles actually now support variables. You cannot create typography variables, right? So there seems to be some difference in what customers were expecting, or basically what designers were expecting, and what Figma launched, right? Here's another one. I don't appreciate Figma not fully supporting typography variables. Now we have to support both styles and variables. I was hoping to avoid such shenanigans, right? So these two tweets are extremely valid and extremely important to consider. And that's why I'm making this video, to help you understand what are these guys talking about, and should you actually use the feature that Figma launched. You shouldn't use it just because they launched it. It makes sense to use it only if you have a really strong use case. So in this video, I'm going to quickly take you through the underlying difference with examples, and also I'm going to show you how to use it in a real project if you decide to use it, right? So it's going to be a very detailed video. So let's get started. Now, if we look at color styles or color variables, right? And this is what, Figma launched last year. So you have an element and then you apply a color variable. So as you can see, all of these, the preview here is a square shape and this is a variable. And if it was a color style, it would be circle in color, right? So we are actually applying a color variable here to an element. So we created variables and then we're applying the variable. We're not really applying a color style, right? All these are variables and we are naming it according to the use case, right? Now, I'm not going to go into the details of this, of why this is called primary or whatever it is, but you can see that we're using variables. But for typography, we are still using text styles because you can't really create that variable similar to color variables. You have to still use a text style, right? What do I mean by this? Now, before I go into explaining that, I highly recommend to watch this video, which is one of my videos, which is the ultimate guide to Figma variables and design tokens. It actually explains everything in depth about variables and why you need to even use it. And this obviously specifically surrounding colors, because when I made this video 9 months ago, typography variables didn't really exist. So I highly recommend to check this video out if you sort of want to brush up, or you want a reminder of what exactly I'm talking about. Now let's come back. Now here's an example of the text style. Now what you see over here is that I'm actually taking the text style and applying variables to the various properties. So I'm applying a font size variable, I'm applying a font name variable, I'm applying a line height variable and a font weight variable as well, right? So why do we really have to do this, and why can't we just, choose the particular font and choose the appropriate weight and choose the appropriate font size, right? Why do you really have to go ahead and add variables is the biggest question, right? So this explains the difference between typography variable and variables for typography. So you're using variables for a text style, and at the end of the day, you're still applying the text style to the component. Now, let's go ahead and actually take a step back and understand how do big companies actually do this. So here I am on Uber's design system, which is called Base. And I've spoken about this in my design systems course. You can get it on learnproduct.design/design systems. And let's go ahead and understand how Uber does it. Now you can see over here, they have something called as tokens. But before we go there, let me show you a couple of things. So if you see over here, they typically have 4 types of categories of text styles, right? So here you've got display, you've got heading, you've got label, and you've got paragraph. All right. So they've categorized their text styles into 4 separate categories, as you can see over here: display text styles, heading text styles, label text styles, and paragraph text styles. All right. And you can see over here that here they have their various token, right? So for example, display small is the name of their token, right? Now, of course, you can also call it text style to make things simple, but of course, this is their token, right? And let's understand this in a little bit more detail. So let's take an example. Let's actually go over here. Let's go to tokens. Now here you can see they have display and they have headings, they have labels, and then they have paragraphs. And under each, they have 4 types of text style. So you've got display large, you've got display medium, display small, right? So let's take one example. So we take display large. So if display large is the name of the token, that token has a particular font weight, which is 700. It has a font style, which is Uber move. It has a line height, and it has a font size as well, right? That is very similar to what a text style is in Figma. The only difference is that you're now applying variables instead of saying 96, instead of saying 112, instead of saying 700 or, thick or, extra bold or whatever it is. You're now applying a variable to the text style. So technically, whether you use text styles in Figma without variables or with variables, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So these are all their tokens, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think you can count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So they've got 18 tokens, or basically 18 text styles. So if you go to Figma of, if you're a designer in Uber, you would see 18, text styles in Figma, and each of those text styles have the specific variables assigned to it. All right. Let's take another example of Shopify. Now, this is Polaris, which is Shopify's design system, and they recently redesigned their entire design system. So there's a couple of things that we can learn. If I come down here to the font and type scale section, you can see they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've got 10 type scales, or basically text styles, or tokens as we want to call it. And let's understand this a little bit deeper, right? So if I come down here to tokens, right, and if I scroll down over here, they've given an example, right? So they've said semantic text tokens. All right. And this is pretty much what we do for colors as well. We have semantic color tokens, right? So we got surface primary, we have content secondary, we have border primary. These are semantic color token names. And now we have text token names, right? And here the text token name is called as heading SM. SM stands for small. You've got body MD, right? So if I come back over here, you've got heading small, and then you've got body MD. All right. So you can see that they have body MD and they have heading small, which is obviously 2 different tokens or text styles, right? So if I come down over here, and you can see that each of that has a specific font size, it has a specific line height, it has a weight, it has a letter spacing, and of course it falls to a family. Now, of course, in Figma, this could easily be a text style itself, and then we could assign all these things. But the moment you create a text style with variables for each, so you take a font size variable, you take a line height variable, you take a font weight variable, then you are sort of following the structure. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether you're using these variables or not, right? And here's an example of the token structure, right? So you've got P, text, heading 3, whatever, right? So you can ignore P, you can ignore text. We can just look at this, right? Heading 3 XL font size. Heading 3 XL font line height. So this is typically how they're structuring it. And of course, I'm going to show you how to set this up for a really big project. And of course, I'm going to show you how to set this up for a project. But if you see over here, heading 3 XL, all right. So if I come down over here to font size, yeah, heading 3 XL is one of their token names. And the name of the specific token for the font size that is being used for heading 3 XL is called heading 3 XL font size. Now, what is the value? It could be whatever it is, right? But that is the name of the token. I'm going to reference this again when we're going ahead and creating the variables and setting up all of that in Figma. But I'm giving you an example over here, all right? And what they're basically doing is, if I come down here to tokens and if I come down here to text, all right? So here you can see this. If I were to take a simpler example, let's do font, all right? So they've created the font size tokens, that basically what we do for colors, right? Because we have 10 different shades of color. So we say, white, let's say we take blue 100, blue 200, blue 300, blue 400. So just the way we do that for colors, they've done that for the font sizes. They've done that for the font weight. They've done that for the letter spacing as well, which is densest, denser, dense, normal. And they've also done it for the line height, right? Now, this makes it easy for engineers. But do you really have to use this? not really if you don't really want. So the biggest question is, when should you use this system that Figma has introduced? And I probably would put it into 3 different buckets. So the first one is you're trying to design for multiple platforms. So let's say you're designing for mobile, tablet, web, you're doing it. And even for web, maybe you have multiple breakpoints. So in that case, you don't have to create multiple textiles. You just have to create one textile and then it will adapt depending on whether it is for mobile, whether it is for tablet, or whether it is for web, right? The second one is if you just want to use the latest features and you understand it and you're okay with it and you just want to use it, obviously go ahead and use it, but it's not really hard and fast rule. And the last one is better maintenance of the design system. Of course, it will help in better maintenance, but if you don't think you're going to be making too many changes to the typography, you don't really have to do it, right? If you have a bunch of 10 textiles and that's enough for you, you don't really have to create all these variables. But if you have a bigger design system and you feel you're going to make a lot of changes to it, then it's better to follow the approach, right? Now, these are pretty much the main reasons why I would ask people to use variables for their textiles. And if you don't fall into any of these 3 categories, it's fine. You don't have to use it. It's not a big deal. So now if you have decided to use it, let me show you how to actually do it with a real example. All right, so here I am in Figma and the project file that I have here is from my design systems course where I redesigned the entire Airbnb app, or not the entire app, but most of the screens. So here what I want to basically do is explain the process that you want to follow. Now, as you can see, we have all the textiles that are over here, and this is what we have applied to each design system component, right? So if I were to take this example, so let's say we have this, right? So this title card is a component, all right? If I click on the master component, you can see that I come over here and this text element has a particular textile applied, right? So it's called heading large, all right? And all these are basically textiles that we have, right? So in the end, I am still applying a textile, but I will have variables for each of the properties of the textile, right? And we want to follow a similar approach that we have done for colors, right? So if I come down here to tokens and if I show you colors, we've got our basic raw colors, right? So we've got our neutral colors and we have given them gray 300, gray 400, brand 400, whatever it is. And then we're applying the color token. So we're taking this one color and then we're defining a use case for it, right? So if I come over here and let's take an example of white, right? That white is called surface primary. And we want to do the same thing for textiles as well, right? So we want to create, first of all, these raw values and then use it appropriately in the use case, right? So how is that going to work? So, and actually before I go here and show it, you can see here I've also created the typography tokens and I've created this video which is guide to typography. I highly recommend you to check this out. This is so detailed on how to set up an effective and an appropriate textile for your app. It's super helpful. Highly recommend everybody to check that video out. All right. So as you can see over here, I've got 2 display, I've got 3 heading, I've got 3 label, 3 paragraphs, and then I've got 3 links also. Now, you may have a design system ready, you may have textiles ready, and now all you want to do is just update these textiles with the token. So you're not really destroying and adding something on top. You're just improving on something that already exists, right? And as you can see over here, the token name here is called display large. Here it's called display medium, all right? And if I click on this, you can see it's called display large, right? Now we just have to apply variables to this. So let's see how to set all of this up. So I want to go to the variables over here. And if you see over here, we basically have all our colors, which was our grays and all of this. And maybe actually let me make this quite big so we can see it properly. All right, put in the center, okay. And then we have our color tokens where we went ahead and picked all of them and then we sort of assigned variables and created color variables, right? So we're gonna go ahead and create a brand new collection and we're gonna go ahead and call this typography, all right? And what I will do over here is actually go ahead and I will rename this and let's add an emoji. So I'm gonna say text, alphabets. All right, so I'm going to do this over here. And so we have colors, typography. Now here, what we want to do is go ahead and add in all our base variables. What do I mean by that? So what we're going to do is come here and apply all the various font sizes that we want, all the font weights, all the line heights, and also the letter spacing. And we can definitely use this as a reference when we go about this, right? So here you can see, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new variable. Now, because the font family is basically going to be a layer of text and it's not really a number, we want to use the string variable, all right? So here, I'm just going to say font family, and I'm going to play slash, all right? Or let's actually see how we did it for colors, right? That's fine. Let's go down to here to colors. Yeah, that's fine. And then for the tokens, we added the hyphen. All right, that's okay. Come down here to colors, we go to black and white, or we go to all variables. I think this is fine. All right, so we can follow the same approach. I'm going to say font family, and I'm going to say slash because I want to create a group, and let me explain what this is. And here, I'm going to call this Airbnb. All right. So now basically I've created one group called as font family, and I've selected, the name. So here you can do whatever you want, right? If you have multiple products, you can enter the name of your product, and the value is basically going to be the font name, right? So we're going to be Airbnb serial app. That's the name of the font, right? So now what I will do is I will come over here, click on this, and here, instead of choosing it from the list of fonts, I will apply the variable, and here I will apply the Airbnb serial app, which matches the name of the font name. Click on this, and that's about it, right? Nothing else changed. So ideally what you want to do is you want to go ahead and apply that variable to all of the text styles that you have, all right? So if I come down over here and let's just say this, and I'm just going to do it for 5 of them so that we can quickly sort of get an understanding, right? Now, what is the main benefit of doing this? Nothing really, because if I come over here and one day I decide I want to change the font, I don't have to do it for all the text styles. I just have to do it over here, right? So if I come over here and let's say I change this to instrument sans, for example, right? When I do that, you can see that all of that changes to instrument sans over here, right? And now if I come over here, you can see this, or let's actually go click on this, all right? Now I've called it Airbnb, but if I actually go ahead and detach it, it has instrument sans as the thing, right? So of course, it's very rare that you would go ahead and change your font itself, but it's good to be organized and have a systematic approach. So I'm going to Control Z everything. Come back here to variables. We have Airbnb serial app. Okay, perfect. The next thing that we want to do is, let me close this up, all right, is to go ahead and create all the font size variables. Now let's go ahead and see how Shopify has done this. So what they've basically done is they've created for everything. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 30, 32, 36, 40, right? So they've gone ahead and created a lot, all right? And of course, I don't think they're using all of these, but they are using some of these. Right? They've just created it, and we can also sort of follow a similar approach and do this. I'm going to give you another example of the human interface guidelines. So here in the human interface guidelines, if I come down to the typography section, you can see here that these are all their text styles, all right? And you can see that the font size of all of this, but you can also see here that they have all of these values, predetermined. So they've got like all the way from 6 to 96, 96, 92, 88. So they've gotten all these raw values, all right? And of course, you can go ahead and create all these if you want, but obviously I'm not going to do that for my app. But if you think it makes sense for your product, highly recommend you to go ahead and do this. Maybe you don't have to do it as much as this. I don't think you will ever have a 58 or a 60 pixel font size, all right? But you can see over here, they've taken these ones. So basically, they've taken the font size from here, and then they've gone ahead and created a text style for this. So that is pretty much what we're also going to be doing. So if I come back over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second to look at the font sizes and see what is a good system that we can follow, right? And I can refer over here itself, right? So I'm going to type this down. So I'm going to say 32, all right? The best way for me to do is actually take a screenshot. So let me go ahead and quickly take a screenshot of all of this. And I'm going to paste that over here. All right, so let's see, we've got 32 and I'm going to create a couple of duplicates, and then I've got 22. I've got 26, I've got 18, I've got 16, I've got 14, I've got 12. All right, so basically these are all the font sizes that I have. Now, what we can actually do is, if you want to keep things simple, I would say go ahead and create raw values just for this. All right, so we can just go ahead and reorder this. So we have 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 26, 32. Or if you feel like you're going to expand, you're going to need more, I would say go ahead and create a few more, right? So I would probably start with, I would have a 10, then I would have 12, 14, 16, 18, 22. Then maybe you can have a 24 as well. All right, if you think you're going to use 24 somewhere, you've got a 26, you can have even maybe a 28. All right, oops, 28, and then you can have a 32, right? So you have this option to go ahead and set up all of this, or you can just set up these itself and maybe this should be fine. All right, now how do you choose between this and this, right? So if I were to take the new one, so 28, 24 and 10, and let me just quickly add a different color to it. Oh, 28, 24 and 10. Right, so these are the new ones. If you feel you're still exploring your design system and you still feel you need these values, then it makes sense to create them. But if you feel you have your solidified design system, you don't really need to make any big changes to it, then you can go with whatever you already have today, right? So I'm going to go with probably this approach. Of course, you can go with this approach as well and add all the ones in the middle, like 10, 24 and 28, but I'm going to go with this, right? So let's go ahead and do it, right? So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and start off with creating a new one. Now here, because the actual value is a font size, which is a number, we want to use the number variable. All right, so here, I'm going to remove it. Actually, I'm going to delete this one. Come down to the primary one over here. And then here, I'm going to create a number variable. And this is going to be called font size hyphen. And then now we have to define a structure. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Now, actually, maybe we can use all of this itself, right? Because what we did here for the colors is pretty much that. So we went from gray 100 to gray 1000, which is around 10 values. So maybe let's go ahead and do that. Nothing wrong with doing it. So I'm going to start with font size, and I'm going to say 100. All right. Now here you can see that the name of the token is font size 275. So maybe we can also do the same. We can call this font size 100. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and just create duplicate. So until we have like 9 of them. So this is going to be font size 200. This is going to be font size 300. So I've gone ahead and created all the types, and now we just assign values. Now you can do it in whatever way you want. So I'm going to start with 100 is going to be 10. This is going to be 12. All right. So now we've got all our raw values over here. Now here is where things change quite a bit. Now, what we now have to do is select this text style, all right? And if I open this up, we now have to apply the 32 pixel font size as a variable. So I'm actually going to come down here, apply a variable, and why can't I move this, right? Things are getting covered over here. Okay, let's try that again. Apply a variable. And here in the font size, I can actually apply 32. Now, of course, that is one way to do it. But what Shopify is doing is, if you come over here, they're taking one of these base tokens that we just created, all right? And then they are going ahead and adding that over here. So they're taking that token and calling it text heading SM font size. All right. And this is basically giving that use case to that particular raw token. So what that means is, now if we can go ahead and create a new collection, and I'm going to go ahead and call this typography tokens, although it sort of technically is not. All right. I'm going to go ahead and create a string variable. And first we're going to go ahead and type here display and we're going to say large. So display large. All right. Or you know what? Let's actually do this. I'm going to say display hyphen large. All right. So we have got display. Under that we have large. So basically we're trying to create the same hierarchy over here. And here I'm going to start off with the font name, right? So if I come back here to Shopify, you can see that it says the text heading SM font family. So I'm going to come here and say display large font family. All right. And then I'm going to apply that font family Airbnb token that we had made from the raw, right? And then I'm going to apply that. Now, next is the font size. So I'm going to come over here, create a number variable, all right? And I'm just going to put that over here. And I'm going to copy the same thing. So I'm going to copy that, paste it over here. And here we're going to say font size. And now, since it's 32, what we want to do is come over here and pick 32, which is from our font size. Now, 32 was 1000. So I'm going to apply that over here, right? So we can check that quickly. So come down here to typography. You can see that 32 is font size 1000. All right. And there we go. So what we're basically doing is sort of setting up this text styles here as well, so that in case in the future, we want to change the font size, or we want to change the line height, or we want to change the font weight, we can do it over here. Now, of course, you can come over here and do it here as well, right? Instead of setting it up over here, you can set it up here as well, right? So if I come down over here and set this to font size 1000, it does the job. But instead of setting up the raw value, we can set up the actual semantic value, which is this one. So this 32 is the raw value, and this one is the one that we just created, and we can use that over here. Now, it doesn't really do anything. It's still the same thing. It's still using the one, let's try that again. The one that we created over here, which is why now people are confused about this entire system, because now you're duplicating everything over here and you're duplicating everything over here. What is the difference, right? This is where the confusion is coming from for a lot of people. But anyway, we're following this approach because we did this for colors. Now we want to do the same thing over here for typography as well. Okay, next we have is the font weight, all right? Now for font weight, if we want to see what they went ahead and did, so if we come down here to tokens and we go to font. Now for font weight, they only have 4. So they have regular, medium, semi-bold and bold, right? And you've got these associated values. And of course, you don't want to create all of them because your font may not really have all of them. So you want to take your font and create as many styles as the font provides you. So for us, if I select this over here and I just break this, you can see I have light, book, medium, bold, extra bold, and black. All right. So I'm going to come down here to our raw tokens now and create a new one. And we're going to go ahead and again, now here we have options, right? Do you want the value to be light, book, medium, bold, extra bold, black, or do you want to have the appropriate numbers for it, right? Because if you see over here, the appropriate, what they've done is they've applied the number over here for the particular weight. And this is what engineers also do. So we can also follow the same approach. Now, because of course, this is a number, we want a number variable. So we can go ahead and create a variable. You can create a number variable. I'm going to call this font weight / and then we want to say light. All right. Say light. Okay. So font weight. Now I'm just going to duplicate all of this. We need 6 of them. 6. Okay. So this is going to be light. Now, what are the values? We can quickly look at that if you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate all of this. So I'm going to apply a light one. I'm going to apply a book. This is going to be medium. This is going to be bold. This is going to be extra bold. And this is going to be black. I'm going to quickly duplicate all of this. And then here now I can go to developer mode. I can click on this and I can see, okay, so this is 300, this is 400, this is 500, 700, 800, 900. So 3, 4, 5. So this is going to be 300, just so that I don't forget, 300, 400, 500, 700, 800 and 900, just so that I don't really forget. So we can open up our variables again, font weight. So light is going to be 300, 400, 500, 700, 800, and 900. All right, now we want to come back over here to our typography tokens, create a new one. We want to see a number variable, and we are going to drag this down inside. I'm going to copy this, paste it, and here we're going to say font weight. Now, what is the font weight? If we come down over here and we look at this, you can see that the font weight is bold 700. So I'm going to click on this and type in 700 and not the font size. We should have this one, right? So bold 700, right? So I'm going to tap on this, and then now we have this. And what we want to do here is select the text style, click on this. You don't want to apply bold, all right? So you don't want to come over here and say bold. What you want to do is you want to scroll down all the way over here and choose display large font weight. Again, do you really have to do it like this? Not really. You can just apply bold and you're sorted. But we're coming up with this structure where we are creating all our text styles and variables over here and also doing it over here. Yes, it is double work. And if you don't want to do the double work, you don't have to go with this approach. You can just directly apply the variables over here. All right, so what I've done here is I've gone ahead and created all the various typography tokens. So whatever I have on the right side, I've gone ahead and created it here in the variable section. And for each one, I've gone ahead and created three things. I've created a font size, a font weight, and the line height. And I've referenced all of this from the raw tokens that we created. So we created the font size, created the font weight, and then we also created the line height. And as you can see, I've gone ahead and renamed things a little bit here. Probably I should rename this to have a lowercase e anyway. But as you can see, I've taken these raw values and then put them in the typography tokens. Now, doing this isn't really going to be enough. We also have to come over here. And if I take, let's say, label large, I've applied that over here. So I've applied the font family. I've applied the font weight, which is label large. And you can see that in the tooltip. I've applied here label large font size and then label large line height, right? And I'm going to be repeating this again. This requires double work where you have to do this over here and you have to do it over here, which is why it's a little confusing, but you don't really have to follow this approach where you create the second set of text styles. You can just come over here directly to this text style and then apply the appropriate raw token. So instead of choosing label large font size, you would probably come over here and you would choose, font size 400, right? So that's one way. So I hope this makes a lot of sense and will help you understand how you need to set up typography tokens for your project. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So then take care and bye-bye.